Hey guys.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. We are here with a special guest.
A special guest, one of our favorite people in the entire world, and that is not even an exaggeration. We are here with our Auntie Mel, Melissa Harmon. She is the guru in all things, and we have been dying to have her on the podcast for literally so long. She is like, if I just could describe her in like a couple of words for you guys, just like wise and spiritual and earthy and fairy magic. Like she is all things like just so zen and good and cool and like so down to earth, and she just is the coolest person. And a couple of times we've talked about on the podcast foot zoning, and we have talked about astrology a couple times, and our Auntie Mel knows everything about those things. Like she just really is the guru. She is a foot zoner herself. She does astrology. She has done reiki. She has really delved deep into like a ton of spiritual healing realms, and we're really excited to hear from her today and have like her expertise. But she's here right now, so welcome, Auntie Mel.
Thanks, guys.
So I have a quick story to share before we like get into everything, and we've shared this story multiple times, so Claire and Mel both like will know exactly what I'm talking about, and we've probably beat like this horse is far gone, and we've beat it to death a million times. But so my Aunt Melissa, her oldest daughter, or cousin Maddie, is like one of my very best friends, and we were tight at the hip like from the ages of like 11 to 15. Like we did not, I'm pretty sure like I would spend like a week straight at this house and like never leave. I probably owe you rent.
But every minute.
There was one summer, so your youngest is Sailor and she is 10. Did she turn 10?
11.
She turned 11 in October. Okay, yep. Crazy. So it was the summer you were pregnant with Sailor. You were big pregnant because you had Sailor at the very beginning of October. So this was probably August. So you're 7-8 months pregnant, like ready to pop. Like it's so hot outside, and you've got two annoying teenagers in your house at all freaking times. And we were being annoying. Maddie and I had these like weird characters that like we called Herm and Sherm. I was Herm, she was Sherm. It was just like our alter egos that we went in when we were trying to be our most annoying, obnoxious selves. And we had driven our Aunt Melissa and her mom Melissa. We'd driven Melissa to the edge, okay? Being just so obnoxious. It's so hot outside. She's so pregnant. And she goes and turns to us and she says, "You know what? I'm going to write a book about two little bugs named Herm and Sherm that bug everybody." And I will never forget it for as long as I live, because Maddie and I just busted up. We were not even offended. We were just like, yeah, like that's us. Just like the two little annoying bugs that bug everybody. So one of my favorite memories with you was Herm and Sherm. And I love you to death, and I'm so grateful you're my auntie, and I'm so grateful you're here today. But
thank you for having me. And I loved you guys that summer, and you were hilarious. To be fair, you were funny 95% of the time. There was just, I think that day was just extra hot, and I don't know, but I think we should still write the book. I think it could be fantastic.
Oh, it could be a bestseller.
It could be such a good cute little book with these
about
little
like
bugs.
two little bugs,
and they're really adorable.
Yeah,
we could do it.
Oh, I love it. I think we should. So we just want to kind of launch into first, like, why don't you introduce yourself? Like, what is it that you do, and like what like services you kind of offer to people? We'll just kind of like give a blanket statement, starting now. Yeah.
Okay. So I gosh, how do I start? I do a little bit of everything. So I wish I could say that I was like a master of one thing, but I'm not. I am just a very curious person. And so I like to dive into a lot of different things. I feel like I glean what I need from it, and then I may stick with it or I may move on. And I've had to be really forgiving of myself to not get, upset when I don't stick with stuff. So I have tried a little bit of everything. And sometimes I feel like, why so many things. But I'm just curious. I'm on this spiritual journey. Some things work really well. Some things are not for me, and they are for other people, and that's great. So anyway, so just like you say, yeah, I've done a little bit of everything from, the aura stuff that I started out with, and oracle card reading and reiki and foot zoning and astrology, and of course I'm in a class right now, something new.
Oh, I love it.
I love that you've dabbled in everything, because then you're kind of a jack of all trades, and you know about all sorts of different modalities, and I think that's really cool.
Aw,
so,
thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
love
you.
how you phrase that. Like you glean what you can, and then you move on. And I think that's like actually a beautiful metaphor for life. Like you don't have to stay in one place or like always be interested or invested in one thing. It's like glean what you can and move on. And I think that actually is like beautiful and a perfect way to put it.
Yeah, totally. Like we go through seasons in life. So maybe what I needed 10 years ago isn't it's no longer serving, or,
Yeah.
So it's definitely a winding journey, but it's been a fun one for sure.
And I think I've looked up to you in the sense that you haven't been confined to any one sort of thing. And I really like that.
Aww.
I like that, I feel like spirituality really should just be something that benefits and like helps us all grow. And I think if you're stuck in the mud about one sort of thing, you can miss out on a whole bunch of other benefits that all of these other things have to offer, like
Totally.
It's whether you're like, oh, I'm not going to try foot zoning because it sounds too woo-woo to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're like, oh, I'm not going to go and sit in on a mass because it's foreign to me. I just feel like if you're open to so many things, you learn so much from all of it,
Totally.
So I've always looked up to you in that.
Aw, thank you, Claire.
I also think that like one spiritual modality doesn't have to like cancel out another.
Right.
Like you can participate in multiple. Or
Yep.
it's like I
Yep.
can go to church every Sunday and do like the typical like Christianity thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can also like pull tarot cards and like see what the energy takes me there. Like I don't think it's like mutually exclusive. I think that like they all, I mean, this might be woo-woo to some people, but I think all of it's like kind of intertwined, and I think it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And I think that like whether you believe in like a higher power or not, like for me, in my opinion, I think like our higher power provides us with like multiple ways to experience him and to connect with him, and it just looks different.
It just,
so
yep, totally. It looks different
Yes.
all the time. And I think that's what was, because even though I wasn't brought up religious, growing up in Utah, you have those pretenses, right? So beginning this journey, there was definitely fear, and there's a lot of, like, ooh, what am I messing with here? Like maybe I shouldn't. And I do think that's important to follow. Like discernment is super important too. And if there is something that you're like, that doesn't call to me, then leave it alone. But just like you say, just being open-minded will expand a lot,
Yeah, and I do think you do have to trust your gut. Like if it doesn't feel good and doesn't feel like the light, then stray away from that. But if it's a way that is like bringing up like your positive energy, connecting you to whatever your interpretation of source is, then I think that's like a good thing.
Yep.
And totally, I think that when you grow up in a certain area, and for us it's been Utah, where the main religion is Mormonism, and heavily Christianity, that like people will tell you, because they don't have knowledge about it, and because there is some fear, and because of things they've been told themselves, that it's like, oh, tarot readings of the devil, or like anything that's like not directly like trying to think of the right word. What is the word? Like something that's like not organized is like maybe like wrong, or it's just like people are wary of it. So
For
yeah,
sure.
it is super important to have that discernment, and super important to keep, I think, an open mind, and believe what you believe, and but also be like open to like, oh, this could enhance my belief and make my belief stronger. So
Totally.
yeah, I think it's awesome. This first question I think was Claire, so I'm gonna let her ask it.
Yeah, so kind of what we talked about already. As long as I've known you, you've dabbled in like a lot of different spiritual practices and holistic healing. And so I was wondering, what modality were you first drawn to? Was there a first one that served as a gateway to the others? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so it's kind of interesting because I feel like Sailor, back to the summer I was pregnant, something with that girl opened up, and I felt called to heal parts of myself that I hadn't really wanted to dive into, you know? And so I went to the health food store, not our health food store, but the other one that used to be there when I was pregnant with Sailor. And there was this very nice woman in the back, and she was, you know, maybe mid-50s, and she just looked like your everyday average woman. She wasn't wearing a crazy gown or, you know,
she's not like dressed like an oracle.
Yeah, she wasn't, you know, she wasn't over the top. She was just very average, pretty, you know, nice lady. And she was like, I'm doing chakra balancing today. Would you guys like a chakra balance? And I was like, what is that? I did not know what it was, but I was curious. And I think it was like a $5, $10 thing. And I was like, sure, whatever, you know? And so she put her hands, there's 7 chakra centers in the body. So she put her hands over those centers and just kind of slowly worked through and was able to tell me a couple of things. And I was blown away. So that was definitely the gateway. It was like, I don't know how to describe it other than maybe just that sense of like, there is something to this energy body, not just the physical senses, not just the physical body. And then this kind of ties into a later question that I was reading, but so I went back to that lady for a card reading, an angel card reading, a month or 2 later. And again, I was like super nervous, but super excited because, you know, I kind of had my like fears around it. And she saw me and she was like, oh, this book fell off the shelf. This was for you.
What?
Yeah. So she was like, you're pregnant. And I'm like, yeah. Like my belly had popped at this point.
Oh,
and
okay.
she's like, this book fell off the shelf this morning. And I knew it was for somebody, but I didn't know who. And she's like, I've been doing readings all day here and I didn't know who I was supposed to give it to. And she's like, it's you. And she hands me this book and it's called The Crystal Children. And it's got this little baby on the front. And here I am pregnant with this little baby, right? That I just felt like, by the way, it was 2012. So I don't know if anybody gets into that, but there was a lot of shifting in 2012. It was supposedly the end of the Mayan calendar.
Yes,
and all of that. So anyway, the book is, I still have the book. There's some things in the book that don't resonate and some things that totally do. And part of it was just that there is this new generation of children coming in. And, you know, we needed to be in a healed place as parents to raise this new generation.
My gosh.
So that
How crazy when you like are pregnant with like this little girl who is very much a tail ender for you guys.
Very much.
Because how old was Porter?
6.
Okay, so that's like kind of the same distance between Claire and our youngest brother Sam. Like there was like a possibility that like she maybe wouldn't have come. Like that was kind of the same with our mom and Sam, is that she kind of maybe thought she was done, but always kind of had a pull that there was supposed to be another, but just never knew how it was going to happen. And it kind of was taken out of her hands. And then she got pregnant with Sam, and he truly is like, he was supposed to be here. And I feel like Sailor is the same for your family, where she and Maddie are 15 years apart.
15 years apart.
And Paul and Sam, our oldest, are 15 years apart.
15 years,
That is crazy. I didn't realize that we had those synchronicities.
I didn't either. And 6 years between
and 6
Claire
years
and
between
Sam.
the third and the fourth.
Yep.
That's so weird. And how old was Maisie?
Let's see. So Maisie would have been 12. So she's about 12 years, because Maddie and Maisie are 3.5 years apart. So Maisie would have been right between 11 and, well, she would have been 12 that year.
Okay, because Sailor was born in October, then Maisie's birthday is in November.
So she turned 12 right after. So yeah, 12 years.
Weird. Okay, so when Sam was born, he was born 4 days before my 11th birthday. So we're 11 years apart.
Okay.
So like same kind of thing with me and Maisie too, is that 11 like year gap. Whoa.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's wild too, because I know grandma was kind of thrown off because she's like, well, we had our babies 2 years apart back in the day. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like we're spacing these kids way out.
Yes.
Because it was kind of like that. Like, yeah, okay, maybe I'm done. Maybe I'm not. Maybe, you know what I mean?
So how crazy that it's like this beautiful little girl who you weren't even probably sure that she was going to be, that she ever was going to come, that you ever were going to have a fourth, that she comes and it's like, and you've already felt the need to like heal some things inside of you. And then you get this, you know, you kind of randomly connect with this woman, this random like book falls off the shelf. It's talking about the crystal children, how there is a new generation of children in the year 2012 where like people are like, it's the Mayan calendar, we're all gonna die, you know, like they made a movie about it, 2012. So like, whoa. I like have chills. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a wild year. I mean, there was a lot of growth and anyway, and I don't know, I can tell into another story. So after I had Sailor, that January, I get this random email, right? And I don't ever remember signing up for this email list. Like, I'm like, I don't know how I got on here.
Do any of us ever remember signing up for any emails?
It's so true. And now it's like, you know, now my inbox is crazy. But even, you know, even back then, it was like, I still checked my email like, oh, what is this? Like, so it was this email from Stacy, the Aura lady, and you guys know her.
Yes. What's her last name?
Sadler.
Stacy Sadler.
She has a book on auras too that I've read through, and that is
yes.
We'll have to talk about that later.
Aura Personalities.
Yep.
By Stacy Sadler. I think she at the time she had a different last name on the cover of the book.
Now she has a different last name, and I can't even remember.
I can't even remember either.
But
we might have to link it. We'll put it in the show notes.
And it's on Amazon, so
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I remember like when I was younger, like 8 or 9, that was kind of my first like introduction to something sort of alternative, like because you did the auras, and I don't know how it worked, but you could kind of, you know, touch the hand of someone and get a feel for their energy and maybe see what their aura was.
Yeah.
It's the strength test, right?
Yeah, we would do the muscle testing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like maybe we should explain a little bit about that. Like, explain the muscle test, how that would work.
So the muscle test is really cool because the body will always be stronger in truth. And that's the principle behind muscle testing. Back to the auras, I get this email. I go to get my aura read. I think that's what I want to do, is just learn how to read auras, because what do you know, she's teaching a class. So I signed up for this class. Well, it's actually a class about getting clear on ourselves. So I take baby Sailor. I have to dive into all my old stories and crap and all of that. And at first, I mean, the first class, I was like, I'm never going back. I'm never going back. I can't do this.
It's so uncomfortable. You're like, I'm digging up all this crap. Like, you're like, I was not prepared to come and trauma dump. I'm like trying to help other people fix their stuff. I'm not here to fix mine. Like,
I don't want to fix mine. So do the class, but the reward of the class is that you will learn to read auras, but you do have to dive into your own crap. So we're learning muscle testing as we go throughout the class, because it does become a process of trusting yourself. And I think this, you know, you make a circuit, or you can press on your arm. Kind of hard to describe just audio, but
totally.
But one thing that helped me realize that it was true is I was doing push-ups one day, and I was like, okay, if my body's stronger in truth, I'm going to start saying true statements and false statements and see what happens to my push-up. And it was super evident. So if anybody's curious, try that. You know what I mean? Whether you're doing push-ups or running or pull-ups, or, you know, something that you can visit, you know, you can really feel your endurance drop or get stronger. Okay. So I started going, you know, my name is Susan, instantly weaker. Couldn't do the push-up nearly as well, you know?
This reminds me of another method where you just stand straight up. And if you lean forward, that's truth. If you lean backwards, that's false.
Yep.
That was something another foot zoner taught me.
Yep. And have you ever noticed at work, Claire, people do that in supplements all the time?
Really? I have not noticed that.
They'll just kind of be quiet, but they'll hold a supplement in front of them, and then you'll see them just kind of close their eyes, and they'll test. So you can test your body for supplements, for whatever. Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? You know what I mean?
That's so
and I guess good for me isn't the right wording, but more like, is this something my body needs now or not? You know? Right. So yeah.
So the muscle testing essentially is like, you'll ask people questions to try and determine, like, you know, their aura color. This is for people who like some people have the spiritual gift that they actually can see
'em.
somebody's aura and can
Yep.
see the color that surrounds the person.
Yep.
But for those of us who can't, and like you being trained to do this, you're asking questions like, okay, whatever it is, it could be personality questions. And with like the muscle testing, if like your arm held straight, then it was truth, right? If it dropped, it was false.
Yep.
So they're just pressing down on your arm as they ask these questions. If your arm stays exactly locked out, it doesn't move, that is a signal of truth.
Yep.
So it'd be like if I were to say, they said, is your name Hannah Harmon? And I said, yes. And my arm held true. That's truth.
Yep.
If they said, your name is Susan Flenders or whatever, and my arm drops, that's false.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's the same thing with the aura. So we would just decipher what aura color you were. There's different families, like, I don't know if you remember, but like there's the body family. Those people experience the world through their body. Some people are mental family. So we'd go through the family, and then depending on what family they were in, we would decipher what color. And people have many colors usually, but there's usually one closest to the body, and that's kind of your main operating system.
Yeah, and they can change as you get older too, right?
Yep, they can change. Sometimes like, okay, so my third color out is really where I operated as a child because that was the most socially accepted. I got the most like acceptance when I was in that color.
It was kind of like the mask that you wore.
Totally. Yep. Yeah. So you'll filter through them. There are certain times, maybe ages, seasons of life where you're in more one than the other. And sometimes people that see auras, they'll see what's called a situational aura. So if you're sick or, you're having a really bad day, that color can change and they'll see that. That will be evident. Whereas this is more personality, what you came in with. You know what I mean? This one kind of stays the same. And so...
Yes. It's like who you are.
Yeah.
And I remember when I got my aura tested, we had gone for Maddie's birthday, your oldest daughter, just to remind everybody. We'd gone for Maddie's birthday that's what she wanted, to get her aura tested by Stacy, who wrote the Aura Personalities book and who Melissa took this training from. And she tested her aura. It was super cool, super amazing. And then Stacy offered to do mine. And this was kind of my first, exposure to it as well. But she did mine, and my aura, like my main aura was indigo, and my overlay, right? The second one was blue, and blues are very in tune emotionally. They take on like a lot of the emotions of others.
Yep.
And
they're caretakers.
They're caretakers.
Yes.
You also have a blue overlay.
Second color too.
Second color.
Yep.
Yes. So she had told me, and at this time we were going through very like tumultuous time as a family. In our family, our older brother was dealing very heavily with mental health. Spent some time in the hospital. It was a very, very rough time. And she told me, like, you have been living in your blue. Like that is what you live in, kind of the color that is needed around you.
Needed, yes.
Yeah. And so for you as a kid, it's like, okay, this is the color I have to live in order to be accepted. That was the color I had to live in. And that was not just the color, but like the energy I had to live in order to survive, essentially. And to help my family and support.
Yep.
And so it is interesting how like the different layers, we all do that. Like you kind of play up different parts of your personality throughout different times of your life.
Yep.
In order to make other people more comfortable, in order to help yourself survive.
Totally.
But yeah, the auras just made it so clear and made it make so much sense.
Yes. So helpful, right?
Yes,
like to be
so
like,
helpful.
oh.
As a kid, as like I think I was 11 or 12, maybe 13 here. I can't remember. In those ages, it was like so eye-opening to be like, oh. Like, and Stacy didn't know anything about me. That was the first time I met her. And she tells me all this. And I am shook to my core. I'm like, nobody has ever recognized or said out loud these things that perfectly explain who I have been these years, these years of my life and in this time of my life. And like, it really did feel like, I'm sure how you felt with your first initial like chakra exposure was like, whoa, how are you reading all of this that is just trapped inside of me?
Yep. How does anybody see this? You can't see it with your physical eyes.
No.
You can't. Well, like you say, some people can, and I think that's the thing. Like Stacy would say that a lot in our class. There is something to be said for being seen. because we're not. We're judged, and we judge. We can't help it. It's the human ego. So it's like, what family do you come from? How are you dressed? This, that, the other. But to truly be seen on a soul level is so validating and so, I don't know, it just feels very healing, to be able to be seen on that level.
Well, and while we were talking about this, I made a connection that kind of was like, whoa, because your main aura is a crystal, right?
Yes.
And the book that fell off the shelf was Crystal Children. And isn't crystal aura supposed to be kind of like, one of the older kind of souls, like they're a generational, I don't know how.
They came in,
are they a newer?
They're newish, like
newish,
60s,
okay.
70s is when we started to be born.
Okay.
So Stacy's book is based on another lady's book, Barbara, I think it's Barbara Bowers. It's amazing. You can usually only buy the used edition on Amazon, but she was a school guidance counselor. And she had the gift of seeing. And in fact, her electromagnetic spectrum for color was like, if we see, say we see a 5-inch spectrum, she saw like a 15-inch spectrum.
Wow.
So she could see colors that most people don't even recognize. And
Holy
so
crap.
as a school guidance counselor, she's seeing all these children. And she's making notes. Okay, this one has, a lavender aura, personality traits, da 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 da.
Oh my gosh.
So this is years of guiding children and seeing these colors. And so her book was published maybe late 80s. And so she had said she started seeing 2 new colors come in, which was crystal and indigo. And so some of the front runners for that were like my generation, like 70s, 60s. Of course, there was some born earlier, I am sure. And then I don't know if you remember, but in Stacy's class, Stacy actually discovered new aura colors, which I think one is yours, Claire, which is the amethyst crystal. And I can't remember, that was your second, I believe, right?
I think my magenta was my second.
Magenta was second. So
Yeah.
what was are you indigo?
I think I'm a amethyst crystal first.
Amethyst crystal
At least
first.
last time
Okay.
we did it, I think
Okay.
I was. And that's the spiritual family or
That's
whatever.
the spiritual family, yeah. So Stacy had discovered 4 new colors coming in at 2012. But obviously you were born before 2012. So you know what I mean?
Right.
I think every generation brings in its gifts. And so whether you call it Gen Z or you call it an aura color, they all come in with their gifts. So
I love that. And our older brother, the one who was struggling with the mental issues, is also a crystal. And I just think that's another kind of interesting connection.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Crystals really reflect a lot of the emotions around them.
Yes.
And they take in a lot of that.
Yes.
Which could cause mental health issues.
Absolutely.
You see, like you take in so many emotions that like some of them aren't even yours.
Yep.
How that could really cause some inner turmoil for sure.
Yeah. And it becomes hard to decipher what's mine, what's not.
Yep.
And so just for some crystals, going to school can be just totally overwhelming,
And a good way to this is also something I learned recently. A good way to figure out if what you're taking in is yours or not is the muscle test, or is the leaning forward and backwards. Is this mine? If you lean forward, maybe it is. If you lean backward, maybe it's not.
Yep. Totally.
Yes. I mean,
Totally.
this, again, some people might be hearing all this and being like, this is so woo-woo.
Yeah.
But it's like, we truly are energetic beings. It's the same way that you can feel like tension in a room or like awkwardness in a room, or you can feel a room that's filled with joy and love. Like we truly are made and built to sense energy because we are energy.
We are energy
Yeah.
first.
Yes,
Totally.
exactly.
Yep.
So you start with chakras, you move into auras. Kind of what comes next? What comes next?
So after the aura class, which that was a 15-week class, that kind of knocked me, I don't know how to say, like I took a good 2 years of just unwinding myself.
Yeah.
Because that we dove into parts of my childhood and things like that I had never wanted to look at. And so I felt like the couple years after that was really just about me, even though I really wanted to offer, you know what I mean? I wanted to launch into doing aura readings and stuff like that. And I did a little bit here and there. I feel like that was more my journey. Plus Sailor was still a baby, you know what I mean? So that was very inward time. After that, I did some holistic health stuff. placenta.
Oh, yes, the placentas. I forgot about the
See,
placentas.
it's so wild. There's literally everything. But the reason I bring that up is because I had started doing placenta encapsulation, and I went to a fair or whatever that was for new moms, right? It was put on by some midwives, and I'm like, oh, that'll be a good way to get my name out there. And lo and behold, I'm at this fair and I meet this woman that does Reiki. And I had heard about Reiki, and I was like, oh, I have no draw to that. Like, absolutely
Not
none.
for me.
Not for me. Ew,
Does
what is
not
that?
resonate. Goodbye.
Not my thing at all,
Reiki,
right?
more like ratchet.
Yeah, ratchet.
Out for
Reiki
ratchet
is
readings.
ratchet.
Please. I love it.
So the fair was kind of, it was a downtime. So I think I'm sure I had Maddie with me, because I would make Maddie go with me to all these things. I can't remember if Maisie was there or not.
Maddie, it's so funny. Maddie is your
Momager.
oldest. She is your momager.
She's my momager.
She is your Kris Jenner.
She's my Kris
She
Jenner.
is Kris.
She
And like
is.
that is how Maddie has been since day one.
Yep.
Maddie can take control of a room like no other person I have
Yep.
ever known.
Yep.
And you had Maddie at 18.
18. Yep.
And it's like you two are like truly, I feel like, souls that need
Yes.
each other.
We
Like,
need each other so bad.
and
Yes.
like you balance her out and she balances you out, and like
Yep.
you guys have what each other needs. So that kills me. Like
Yep.
she truly is your momager, even though she's your child. Yeah.
Yep, she is. She was probably all of 16 or 17, and I'm sure I made her drive me an old Vanna Blue to the fair.
Vanna Blue. Maddie drove. Well, it was the family car first. It was a blue minivan,
Yep.
powder blue minivan.
Yep.
And then Maddie drove as her high school car. One time it broke down on this busy street in Utah called State Street. In the middle of the road, Maddie and I are broken down in the middle of Vanna Blue. These Hispanic men, these very nice Hispanic men, helped us push it off the sides. Nobody's answering their phones. We loved Vanna Blue.
Vanna Blue was a champ, but
She
couldn't-
was.
She was Toyota, so nothing ever went wrong under the hood. But I don't think you guys could open the doors,
Nope,
right? Did you have to
nope.
roll down the window to open the door?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, it was
good times.
that vehicle. That vehicle had a soul, and I don't care what anybody says.
Did, and she was a blue too.
Yes,
in
she
the
was a
Aura
blue.
family.
She
That's
was-
why
that
we
was her
loved
aura.
her. She took such good care of us.
Oh, rip Vanna Blue.
Yes, we love her. I mean, she's probably still out there somewhere.
Her energy's out
Kicking
there.
butt and
Energy
taking
cannot
names.
be destroyed.
That's right. That's
Yep.
right. She is.
That's so funny. So you took Maddie with you to this fair.
to this fair.
Yes.
There's a little bit of a lull, so we start walking around. Well, I meet this woman that does Reiki. Again, she's nice. She's pretty. She's not weird. You know what I mean? She's not like doing these weird things. And I'm like, huh. So she gives me all these cards. Well, she teaches Reiki. So I sat on it for a while. I was actually doing purpose-driven life class with our Shirley. So
Oh,
see, the God, the Christianity, all of it works. All of it works together because I was learning a new version of God, which was hard for me. You know what I mean? And I really needed Shirley in my life at that time to do it. But I knew Robin had a class coming up, and it was like, pray about it. And I just felt very clear that I needed to go. So there you go again. Oh, I have another synchronicity. I know you haven't asked that
oh my
yet.
gosh. No,
but
go, please.
since we're talking about Vanna Blue,
Yes.
when the Aura Personalities class came up, again, I was like, oh, I really want to do that, but it's expensive. Like, it was expensive for me. We had just had this baby and all the things. And again, I prayed, like, God, if I'm meant to do this, help me do this. Like, help me, have the money and not feel like I'm taking that money away from my family, blah, blah, blah. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, let it go, right? The next day I get rear-ended in Vanna Blue. If you know Vanna Blue,
She could take anything.
she took a licking and kept on ticking. And so it was just cosmetic damage to the back bumper, and the car's paid off. Like, we're just driving her till she dies. We just didn't know she was never going to die,
Right. Never.
Well, my insurance check was almost exactly how much my Aura class was.
You're joking.
I'm not joking.
So you're like, we don't need to put this to the core. We're putting this towards the auras.
Yeah.
That's what Vanna Blue would want.
That was what Vanna Blue was. And it was, this sweet little old lady, we were getting off the freeway and she just ran into the back of me. And I felt worse for her. But, we got the insurance check and that covered the class. So back to synchron. And I don't even know if we got to that question yet, but yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Synchronicities. So anyway, then I did the Reiki thing.
And Reiki, really quick, give us a fourth grader explanation of what Reiki would be. What you would tell somebody who had no clue about
No
it.
clue.
Yeah.
So Reiki works in the energy body. And I know that is a little bit weird, a little ethereal. The chakras are part of our energy body. And Reiki just works in that. And you just hold those centers to bring the body into balance. And sometimes you'll do a session and you won't say anything at all. And you'll just hold those centers for the person. And they may go to sleep or they may get into a deep meditative space. It kind of feels like a relaxing deep sleep. Other times you will hold those centers, and as a practitioner, you may start to get information about that person. And you just tread very lightly and ask them if they would like that information or not. And I think that's where Reiki can get a bad rap, is you have practitioners that might get into their ego that are like, oh, this, and this happened to you when you were 12 and and that's what's wrong with you. And you never want to do that. You know what I mean? And so, Reiki is just a way to balance the energy body.
Perfect. So just help people release, of course, with their permission, to release any trauma held within the body.
Trauma, old beliefs, a lot of people in the energy world will say that a disease will begin as an emotion. And if that goes unhealed, it will eventually manifest into something physical. And so that's kind of where the gift of energy work and that comes in. But I always tell people, even though I'm a believer in Reiki, I'm also super discerning about who I would go to for Reiki. There's very few people I would go to for Reiki.
The same way you would be wary about what kind of medical doctor you would go to, though. It's I'm not just going to go to anybody for anything. There are some medical doctors, scientific doctors are better than others. So I'm not going to go to anybody for therapy. I'm not going to go to anybody for Reiki or for foot zoning. I'm going to make sure they really have my best interests at heart and and are aligned themselves and have positivity themselves.
Totally.
And I usually think that's where these practices get a bad rap. It's not from the practice itself, but the practitioners, who, is this a good person who's representing this, or is it a bad person? And that's usually where people have hurt feelings about it, or some wariness, is not because of the practice, but who represented it,
who did it. Yep. Because I've even heard stories oh, they did Reiki and they opened up my aura and they put all this negative energy in. Well, I never learned that in Reiki. I wouldn't even know how to do that if I wanted to, you know what I mean? And so it's okay.
I was never trained in that type of magic.
That class,
Not that black magic.
Yes.
I'm imagining potions.
I know.
Just this black fog seeping out of your finger. You're just "Wee!" right? And this person's butt or something.
Exactly. So I think it's it's important to just be discerning, and that's one of the gift of learning things for yourself is that you're able to do it for yourself, and if you take Reiki level 1, that's really what it should be all about, is learning to practice on yourself. And so I can't even remember the question now, but that's where we went, was Reiki.
Yes.
Then
Reiki, and then now let's kind of bring it to today.
Okay.
You are actively, I know you take clients and you are actively doing foot zoning, and you got certified in that not too long ago. And you also know a lot about astrology. And I know that the astrology also has kind of been a long journey alongside all of this as well.
Totally.
But you also offer and will put together astrology natal charts for people.
Yeah.
Which is so exciting.
Yeah.
And I want to start talking about that because I know a lot of people know what astrology is. Everybody sees horoscopes and the funny little memes online of those if you're an Aries, this is how you act, or that sort of thing. But let's give a quick definition of astrology And then I also want to know, how do you feel aligned with astrology in your own life? Like
in my own life?
Yeah.
Okay. So a quick analysis of astrology is the best way I had it ever described to me was from the first astrologer I went to. And she said it's a snapshot in the sky at the moment of your birth.
So cool.
Yeah, so cool, right? Because the planets are always moving, the earth is moving. And so it's like the minute you come in, they're in very specific places. Now, some are going to stay there for a whole generation, like Pluto, or you know what I mean? Other ones are quick moving, like the moon is fairly quick moving. And it's not just people, like America has a birth chart.
Right.
The
because
church
America has a birth date,
yes,
you know? Yeah,
yep,
exactly.
Yep. Businesses have birth charts. Marriages, the day you were married, the time you were married, that's going to give a flavor, right? And so I just love it because I think, as going back to the aura stuff, being a crystal, sometimes I don't see myself clearly, right? Like I have always felt like I've had this skewed version of myself. And so tools like astrology or the aura personalities helps me to really get clear in myself. And so I love astrology for the birth chart, the personality stuff. I think the transits and the progressions are interesting. I don't do much with predictive astrology. I leave that to, the experts in that field. I also think astrology is so broad. And so to make perfect predictions is going to be pretty tough, but you can call ideas around stuff. You know what I mean? Like we know there's going to be certain things coming up this year because of the way the astrology is, right? Pluto just moved into Aquarius, which is a big deal. I'll have to send you guys some stuff.
Yeah. Why, really quickly, why is that a big deal? Why would Pluto moving into Aquarius, what does that mean?
So for America, Pluto was in Aquarius when America came to be.
Oh, and it's an election year.
It's an election year. So there was a revolution in America and I believe in France when Pluto came into Aquarius. So Pluto is deep transformation. It's dark. Pluto's far away, right? It's going to pull it all out, which is a good thing, right? If you're decluttering, you got to pull it all out before you start to reorganize and put it away. So, and Aquarius has to do with the collective, technology. This will be interesting. AI, look at Chat GPT, look at what's going on there. You know what I mean? So I think with Pluto, we're going to see some transformation. We may see the dark side of it too, which I think we already are in a lot of ways, and not that the dark side is scary. It's just like, okay, go into observer mode here. What really is going on,
Yeah.
So very interesting. Yeah.
So yes. So astrology, I love that simple definition. It's a snapshot of the sky, the day and time you were born. So like the position of the planets, stars, whatever, the time you were born can totally affect who you are, the energy that comes with you into this world. You even think like the ocean is pulled by the moon and the planet. So it's like the way the planets are can affect so much more than just the way the planets are. So yeah,
totally.
How do you feel aligned, even just like with your own astrology in your own life, like your own chart?
I think it's interesting. Like it's something that I go back to a lot. It's not something that you just take one and done and go, oh yeah, I get it. You know what I mean? When I had my first astrology reading, she was amazing, by the way, because I had always read like I'm a Taurus sun. So I'm just like you say, you read the Taurus horoscope and you're like, yeah, kind of that resonates and kind of it doesn't. Well, then when you get into that entire wheel of the natal chart, you really start to see who you are emerge. As far as aligning with it in my own life, I think it's just something that's like things pique my interest. Like, so one thing for me, I have my Venus in Gemini. Venus is what you love, what you value. Gemini is multiples. It's many things. So going back to, I don't stick with stuff for long because
you can have a love for a lot of things.
Yes.
So like your Gemini takes you there.
Gemini takes me there.
That's so interesting.
Yes.
So we know that when it comes to astrology, knowing all the pieces of the pie, your house's planets alignment is going to make your birth chart the most accurate and specific to you as an individual. That's why it's so important to like not just know your sun sign, which is just like correlates with the month you were born, like I'm an Aries, Claire's a Capricorn, you're a Taurus.
Yep.
But like kind of diving deep into it helps you to really piece out who you are.
Yep.
However, do you think out of the big three, the sun, the moon, and the rising, one is more important or maybe more indicative of a person than the others?
I thought about that when I was looking over the questions, and it's tough to say because they all really work together.
Right.
They really, really do. Sun is important. That's your ego. That's your ego self. And a lot of people, especially in the spiritual community, it's like, get rid of your ego, dissolve the ego. Not necessarily. We need our ego for life on earth,
Yeah,
right?
you can have a healthy amount of ego.
Yes.
It's important to have a healthy amount of ego.
Yes, 100%. It keeps us safe, right? It keeps us functioning on the earth plane. But so the sun being the ego, we need that. The moon being emotions, we need that, right? That inner side, our quiet side, the part that only we know, those and those that are really close to us. And then the rising is interesting because the rising is the planet that was on the horizon at the moment of your birth. So for me, I'm a Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, right? But because my rising is Leo, Leo's ruled by the sun. The sun is my ruling planet. I very deeply resonate with the sun. Now, if you see somebody with, let's say, Gemini rising, Mercury.
That's
is that you?
me. I'm a Gemini rising.
Yes.
Aries sun, Gemini rising.
Gemini rising. Now, that's going to flavor your chart, right? That's going to flavor who you are. That's Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. That rules the mind. So that's very different. You know what I mean? And then depending on what house your sun is in and what house your moon is in, that flavors it. And so it's so tough for me to say which one because, we're multifaceted beings. We have all those pieces working together all the time. So
I love that.
although it is interesting, some people have multiple planets in one house or multiple planets in one sign. And that's always interesting because you see those people that seem to have a lot of strengths in one particular area in life. Or do you know what I mean? Like,
yes. Well, I mean, let's take your son, Porter, as an example. Isn't he a triple Virgo?
he has a ton of Virgo.
He is sun, moon, rising Virgo. So who he is, the sun, like who he truly is at his core, Virgo. His inner emotional, the moon, Virgo. His rising, so maybe what he shows to everybody, Virgo.
Yep.
He is the most Virgo on the planet.
He's a Virgo child.
And I love it because I have said declared multiple times, a Virgo man, especially, I love a Virgo man.
Aww.
I love them. Like they have this energy about them.
Yeah.
That is so, and it's an earth sign, right?
It's an earth sign.
So it's like they're so grounded.
They're grounded.
And Porter is so grounded. And so within his body, and his aura is what? Yellow?
Yellow.
He's a yellow. He's in his body. Yes. He is in the earth. He is grounded. And so it's like funny that connection to the Virgo, to the yellow, to the body, to the earth. Down to earth, grounded.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you can find those connections all the time. It's crazy, because he's Virgo. He needs to move his body every day. That is how he expresses in this world. And so, just important things like that. It's fun you could go forever.
Yeah.
But
well, and it's so interesting too, because that's why you could have 3 Capricorns in a room, but maybe one Capricorn has a 7th house placement, or maybe one Capricorn has like a second, another has an 8th, it's
totally,
there's so many differences between even someone who has the same sun sign.
Or the same. Okay. I was thinking about this today. So me, Nicole, which is your auntie, my sister-in-law, and Paul, we are all Leo moons, but you see how we're all different.
Paul, our brother Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do see certain similarities. Do you know what I mean with that Leo moon? And so it's like you have 3 very different personalities, but still some similarities. And so it's like, how does the rest of the chart flavor that?
Yes. And it might be too why when you do see some of these like funny things on Instagram or like about your sun sign where you don't resonate with that. And you're like, that does not describe me at all. I always felt like that with like the Aries stuff, like the very stereotypical Aries stuff. I was like, that is not me. But then it makes so much more sense when you add in like, oh, well, Hannah, you're a Scorpio moon.
Yes.
And you're a Gemini rising. And then you also have placements here and here and here.
Yep.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So
tons of sense.
I think something that has always confused me about astrology, maybe you can help clear this up for me and probably other people listening, or the houses, what necessarily does it mean to have like, what do the houses mean? Like,
So
what does that mean?
the houses all represent something, and it depends on, so I use Western astrology, right? There's Vedic.
Yes.
A lot of people love the Vedic and claim that's the very most accurate, but just for what I use is Western. And so the wheel is divided into 12 houses, right? And each house has a flavor. And so first house, well, it's also the house of Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So there's going to be similar things between Aries and the first house. So that's where it's like, it gets really interesting because, somebody could have no Aries, but say they have a bunch of planets in the first house. They're going to have some Aries traits there too. And so it just becomes a matter of really synthesizing it all together. Each house represents different parts of our life. And so, like the sixth house, which, would be like the Virgo house, right? It's day-to-day affairs. It's what do you do every day? What are your habits? How do you serve? How do you take care of others and your body, right? Yeah. 10th house, career. What's going on with your career? Some people have nothing in that. Some people have all their planets in the bottom half of their chart. That means their life probably isn't going to be too focused heavily on career. Other people have a ton in that top half, which, yeah, this is going to be a very career-focused life for you, or you're meant to be seen in the public eye in some way, shape, or form, right? So, but again, it's all broad. There's nothing exact there, because you can say, oh yeah, it's this for sure, and you'll meet somebody that has that, and it may not ring true. So that's why I say it's broad strokes. With anything, take what resonates and let go of the rest. And it may be too that, certain things don't present to you in your astrology chart. Like you're like, that doesn't make sense. Well, maybe in your 40s it will, or maybe, what I mean? Like,
right. It's a broad spectrum of like, this could happen later in life, and this could ring true later in life. Or maybe this rang true 10 years ago, but it doesn't now.
Exactly.
So like the houses are like, we take that snapshot of the time and day you were born in the sky, and we put that into this cutout of 12 houses map.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, if we overlay those, this planet was here in this position.
Yep.
So it's like Jupiter happened to be in this position, and that happens to be in the 11th house if you carve it into the map.
Exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the planets have their own meaning. Like Venus is like how you love. So if your Venus is in this certain house, that is how you operate.
Yes, that's going to flavor. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And to use like myself as an example, I'm a Capricorn in the 7th house, and I was like, what does that mean? 7th house is like about relationships of any kind, of like business, romantic, friendship, platonic. And they also said something kind of interesting, like, although like this may be kind of like a big reason why you're here, like what matters most to you, you might be a late bloomer when it comes to all of these things. And I've seen that like a ton in my life, where like it took me longer to form strong relationships with friends, with family, like, strangers. So I think that's kind of an interesting example of how that's like affected my life if you have a 7th house. But
it's so true. I read for a lady once that had a ton of placements in the 7th house, marriage traditionally, right? She had been widowed like 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, this is wild, right? And obviously that's not going to be how yours presents. Right. That was hers. So it's really wild. And like one of my astrology teachers had said, like, okay, just going to the elements, because you can glean a lot just from what your elements are in your astrology chart. So say you come in and you have no water, which water, let's say, represents intuition, emotions, that kind of thing. It could mean that you came in knowing water. You don't need water to learn in this life. Or it could mean you need that lesson so desperately that you're not getting any water, so you'll learn it, right? So it can really show different ways. And it just becomes a matter of like, a qualified astrologist will be able to tell you some things, but it's really you're going to see how it plays out as you live your life, really, Right.
Because I think in my own natal chart, which you did, and it's fabulous, I have like no earth. No earth in my chart. So it's like, it's either that I'm like already had enough of it, that was like lessons I didn't need to learn, or I need to invite some earth into my life. And maybe that's why I love a Virgo male so much.
It could be too. Yeah, you
I'm
need
like,
that
"Whew,
balance.
that feels so good. Like bring that
Yeah.
Virgo. And Claire,
You're attracted to what you need.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
Are Capricorns earth signs? And
Yeah.
Claire and I, while I think like we have like the capability to butt heads, she also balances me out so well. And like I think we have a lot of the things that the other person needs.
Yeah.
And I think that's only become more prevalent as like we've grown older. Like whereas when we were younger and your sisters and everybody with sisters knows you're gonna fight harder with your sister than you will fight harder with anybody than you will fight with anybody else. And it's like as little girls, like we fought like a ton, and she knew how to, and I know I did too, but like knew how to push my buttons, in the exact right way.
Yep.
But as we get older, I'm like, she is such a perfect counterbalance to me, and I think it's because that earth.
Yeah.
I'm that fire and she's that earth. Like, so it is interesting. I love like talking about that and
it's so
diving
cool.
deep into that.
It
and even
is.
like family connections too. Like I'm an Aries sun and a Scorpio moon. Our dad is a Scorpio sun and an Aries moon.
Aries moon.
We are
Interesting.
exact like flips of each other. And in some ways, I feel like maybe in our family, I'm the one who gets him the best, you know?
Totally.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
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 And we've had maybe the easiest going relationship, he and I. But I think there's like a level that we kind of
That
connect and see each
understanding.
other because of those placements in a way.
Totally. Yeah. That's super cool.
Yeah. So
Super
a
cool.
natal chart is basically when somebody requests a natal chart from you, they are asking you to take a look at the position of the planets at the day and time they were born, to put it on this, to overlay it with this map of the 12 houses and to tell them a little bit about themselves.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. It's really just about you, and a lot of it goes into how do those planets play together, right? You can have squares, you can have trines, you can have harmonious placements, you can have harder placements, right? And so it really is, it's just kind of a guide. It's always fun reading when I don't know the person, because then I know I'm not
You have no prior bias.
Yeah, I have
or
no
anything.
prior bias at all. And so it's like, I always just preface it with, take what resonates, let go of the rest. Like I never want somebody to hold on to something that doesn't feel true to them, you know? So.
Right. Or like adjust their whole life because they're like, well,
Yeah.
this is what my astrology says.
Yes,
so this is what I have to
exactly.
do.
Yep.
Like
exactly.
it's not a fortune cookie.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right. And you never want to fall into the trap of boxing yourself in just because, a personality thing says you're this way or indicates you're this way. Like, it should really just be a tool to like help you learn more about yourself. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
For empowerment. And that was one thing that Stacy was really clear about with the auras. And in fact, I know she even hesitated with auras because of that. Just what you said perfectly, Claire. Do not box yourself in because it says you're this, that, or the other. We still have free will. We are beings of free will. We can do anything that we want. And that's true with anything in this realm. I love oracle cards. I don't consult them every day, right? I might go 6 months before I do, and then I might do it every day for a month, right?
Right.
I think the problem is if I'm living my life according to what my oracle cards say,
Right.
take a step back. If I'm
Yes.
not making decisions on my own based on my astrology chart or what my astrologer said, take a step back, come back into yourself. Like these are all
Absolutely.
tools, but they shouldn't replace ourselves. You know what I mean?
And your own agency and your
Yep.
own decisions. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, it's like, and it comes back to like that discussion on nature versus nurture, right? Like this is telling you like your possible nature and like how you were born and like what you might have already inside of you, but like your nurture and your experiences also play into that and
Right.
affect how you utilize these tools maybe that you were born with and how that all plays out, right?
Yep, exactly. It's like, okay, maybe you're a shy person. Well, does that mean you should just stay home and never do anything? No, like you're here for growth, right?
Yeah.
Push yourself. I think like, especially in the new age community too, empaths, that's a big thing. Like, well, I can't do this because I'm an empath. Okay, learn some tools. You know what I mean? Learn some tools and live your life. I get it. Like some people are not going, like me, I'm not huge on social things.
Right.
it doesn't serve me to never attend social things. I may not go every weekend, but right? Like I have to do those things, right?
You can't use it as an excuse not to do something or not to go out of your comfort zone or
Exactly. Because I believe we are here for growth. So
1000%. I love this conversation so much. It's so good. I literally feel like we could like go on for hours and hours and hours about astrology. But maybe we should move into foot zoning. Again, everybody thinks it's a little bit weird. I'm sure like when we talk about it, like she grabs your foot, she like presses a couple pressure points, she tells you that you have a heart problem. Just kidding. But like, it's like, and then you leave. And it's like, okay, you actual freak. Like, what are you talking about? Like the foot is not in the zone. What zone are you talking about? Like, so what is foot zoning? Tell us.
Foot zoning is really cool. So foot zoning it's similar to reflexology, but a little bit different. So the premise is the body is actually so fascinating and the body replicates itself. I don't even know how you would describe it. Not holographic, but so the body is mapped on the foot. The body is mapped on the hand. The body is mapped in the ear, on the back, on the face, right? Like the body is, have you ever noticed in nature, like say you see a seashell and it's a spiral, but it's a replica of itself over and over and over. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Am I even saying that right?
Kind of like, the roots of a tree kind of mirror the cardiovascular system.
Yes. Like that too. Exactly. Yeah. Like the law of similars, right? Mm-hmm. So trees are good for the lungs. They produce oxygen. The lungs need oxygen. Same with the foot. So the whole body is mapped on the foot. And when you trigger the points on the foot that correlate with that specific spot on the body, we always called it a signal in the class that I went to. Like all foot zone practitioners are going to have their own lingo. And in fact, one foot zone practitioner may do it totally different than the other. But so we would just call it like a signal. And you just think of it as flicking on a light switch. So, we're just going to flick on that light switch. We're just going to kind of trigger that part of the body, wake it up. So yeah, it's acupressure. And it just is able to work on the entire body, I guess.
Right. Well, like your nerve endings come down to your feet. So it's like, essentially it's like, okay, this nerve ending in my heel is connected to, whatever part in my body up here. Like totally. If you're wanting to take like the woo woo out of it and bring in more of like the scientific fact, it's like, it's just like pressure points and nerve endings where it's like, okay, I can affect this part of your body by pressing on this nerve ending, right?
Exactly. And you just press it on the foot. It's like if you went for acupuncture, which is done with needles, that's one of the oldest medicines there is. And they stick needles in your ear exactly where they need to open up the chi or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
On the foot, we call it trigger points or pressure points.
In fact, I had an acupuncture session in the month of December, and it's actually healed like something in my body that I've been struggling with ever since I was a kid. And nothing else helped. Modern medicine, whatever. Yeah, it was acupuncture that finally cleared that up. Yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, and also with foot zoning, the places in the feet, like the big toe, that's your crown chakra too, right? Links to that as well.
Top of your head, right? So that your big toe would represent like the top of my head. The like middle, kind of like the ball of your foot, that's like your chest, like what would that be?
Lungs.
Yeah,
lungs,
like
heart,
all of that. And then as you move down the foot, it moves down your body.
Yep,
correct.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so cool. And like the thing with foot zoning is that it can tell you maybe where you're having some problems physically, right? Like for Claire, I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, but just like in her stomach, like she's always had a lot of stomach issues. And like our foot zoner, like in you, we've gone to a couple people, but like could tell that we're like in her foot without knowing her before, pressing on that area in her foot that correlates to her digestional tract, her stomach, say like there is some blockages here, there's something going on here because of the misalignment of that pressure point and like that nerve ending in her foot.
Totally. Yep. Totally. There's some really gifted foot zoners out there that can tell My teacher is one, she's been in it for years. In fact, she learned from one of the founding doctor of foot zoning. But she would never come out and say this, but I mean, you could put your foot in her hand, and I think she would kind of know what was going on with you. You know what I mean? The more you do it, she's just done it for so long, and she's very gifted with it. And so, yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool.
And the cool thing about foot zoning is not just physical, like you can sometimes tell emotional, like trauma that is stored.
Yep. Totally.
I've had my own foot zoning experiences with you, where it was like a clicking in the part of my foot where there was just like a little bit of a, kind of felt like a knot almost, like in like that you would get in your back because of stress or whatever. It was a knot in my foot that correlated with my throat. And it wasn't like, you're like, it's not like physical, like you don't have something like physically wrong with your throat, but you're holding things in and you're swallowing your words, and you need to release those. It's like, you don't need to go and confront somebody.
Yeah.
But like you told me, you're like, just don't judge yourself, get out a journal and write for 3 pages, and whatever comes out, and like let yourself have that voice and speak up for yourself. And that was like the issue. And I went to another foot zoner, and she said the exact same thing. She said that click is your throat, and it's not physical. It's you not speaking up for yourself.
Interesting.
And you not saying what needs to be said. And swallowing.
Yeah.
Like swallowing that truth, and it's blocking you right there. And that's why there's that click. And so it is interesting.
Very interesting. See, and I didn't even remember that. Like, I feel like I don't remember really sessions. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
But I think it's great confirmation, you know, and I think I've been to, I think the foot zoner you guys are talking, and she is amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And everybody, like we said, everybody does it differently.
Yep.
Like you do it differently than she does,
Yep.
and she does it differently than you do, and you guys probably do it differently than somebody else does it.
Yep.
So
totally. I took a little beginner class last January, and that zone was totally different than the one that I learned. But I think, you know, a lot of it goes back to intention. And, you know, they all serve in their own way. So.
And I also want to like talk about that foot zoning isn't just to necessarily diagnose these issues. Like you can help people release these things, right?
Yep, totally.
And how would you go about like helping somebody to release like an emotional issue or?
I think with foot zoning, it's interesting. Of course, always just treading lightly, asking permission. Do you want to go into emotions? Do you want to keep it physical? Do you want, you know what I mean? Do you want me to say what I think, or do you want me to kind of keep it in and just try to work with the energy? I always try to work with the energy after the zone. The school I went to is pretty physical. Like it's more a physical modality. And I know there's other schools that are more energetic, and I'm like, I really like the energy stuff. But as long as they're open to it, it's always nice to just kind of suggest different things that they can do. And sometimes it kind of goes back to that aura thing. Sometimes all people need is just to be recognized and to be seen for what they're going through, or maybe what they've been through. A lot of times they'll, you know, shed a few tears and just kind of let it go that way. And I think that's a really beautiful way to just kind of let it go. If they feel like they need more assistance, you know, of course I'm always going to say, you know, see a therapist, see a doctor if there's more to it than what we can work on. But a lot of times too, I'll do tapping, which is it's emotional freedom technique, and that's a really great way to release emotions too. And so just trying to support each client. And it's funny because each client comes for totally different things. So you just kind of have to wing it for what's best for them, you know, and just hope that you meet the needs that they had when they came in.
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it really is like the coolest practice. And once you do it, you realize you're like, oh, this isn't like as like woo weird as like maybe, you know, it's painted out to be, or that you think it is. It actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people will say, so you can read my feet, so you can tell everything that's going on in my body. Like me, no, I am not to that point. You know what I mean? Nor do I want to. I don't want to try, just like you said, like diagnose. That's not my job. That is your doctor's job. You know what I mean? That's between you and a really qualified professional. But there are foot zoners that, I mean, you hear the stories that they're like, something's going on. You need to go in and be checked. Like they do find certain things that the person had no idea. I haven't had that, but anyway.
What would you, I just want to ask, give us one benefit of foot zoning and one misconception of foot zoning.
Okay. So one benefit is I just think you feel good. You physically feel good. Things start working. You know, the first day or two after, some people may go into a little bit of a detox. So you may feel worse before you feel better. I know when I have them, my brain functions better. My hormones seem to balance. I sleep better. So for me, that's the main benefit, I think, is just physically feeling better. One, what did you call it? A misconception. Yeah. I think the misconception is that it's like a massage. Like, ooh, yeah. Like, oh, so when I was pregnant with Sailor, there was a little foot zone school here in Salem, and I went in and they were like, oh, we can't zone you if you're pregnant and you haven't already been having zones. But if you, once you get to your due date, then we can zone you and we can even try to start you. So I was like, perfect. So, you know, I don't know if you guys remember, I went a couple weeks overdue with her. So I went down and had a foot zone. Grandma came with me. We had no idea. It hurts, right? Like
sometimes it hurts.
There are parts of it that you're like, ow. So me and Grandma walked out and I remember Grandma was like, that didn't feel very good. I was like, yeah, it didn't feel very good, did it?
You guys are fully ready to like sink into relaxation. And they're like, no, we're going to get this trauma out of your body right now.
Take care of this. We're thinking it's like a pedicure, right?
Yeah.
No.
You're like, y'all got like a sugar scrub? Yeah. Like,
when is the lotion and like the massage
hot wax? Yeah. Like,
exactly.
Oh my gosh. I totally agree with you about like the detox. Like after a foot zone, I've had a couple now. I am exhausted.
Tired. Yeah.
I am like, I could go to sleep and sleep for hours. Mm-hmm. But then like in the coming days after, I'm like, oh, yeah. Like I feel lighter. And like a lot of mine have been focused emotionally because that's just what I need. And like a lot of emotional release and realizing that I've held on to things that I didn't even realize I was holding on to. Yeah. And the release of that. And so you do feel, for me, I felt lighter just emotionally, where I was like, oh, that's gone now.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
I that is really, truly gone. Mm-hmm. And I have peace with it. And I like, okay, it's off with the wind now. Yeah. And like that. So I totally agree with you. Like the benefits of that are amazing, even just with the emotional releases I've had with it.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
I love it. Claire, do you have any follow-up questions with that?
No, I don't think I do.
Okay. I mean, we've kind of throughout, one of our questions was about synchronicities, but I feel like we've kind of like more synchronicities have, you know, popped up just in the organically in the conversation, which I love. But were there any specifically that you maybe wrote down that you haven't had a chance to share that you would love to share?
Just the ones like, well, what we had talked about with the book that fell off, and then getting the email from Stacy. And I really appreciated that question because as I reflected on it, I was like, wow, this has been a very guided thing in my life, I feel like. And I don't feel like it's just me though. And I wanted to touch on that of like, I think it's such a great question to ask everybody, like the path that you're on, notice those little pieces that guided you. And it's like, oh my gosh, like when I was thinking about this, I did a little bit Friday night after work and then a little bit this morning. And I was just like, man, I am so grateful for these little guideposts. And I think we all have them. You know what I mean? There's no accidents. There's no coincidences. You are where you're at for a reason. And so I just appreciate you asking me that question because it really, you know, it really made me feel a lot of gratitude for my path and to kind of trust in it. Because sometimes I'm like, oh man, where am I going now? You know, what am I going to do
Lord,
now?
I gave you the wheel, and we are doing donuts in the church parking lot.
We've been doing donuts for a long time. I'm not making much money, but I feel good, you know? I don't know. I was going to tell you one more really cool one. And this is something we'll have to touch on. Plus, I really want you guys to come with me and Maddie sometime. So,
Yes.
breath work. Yes. In the summer, and I had always seen breath work, and I'm like, again, you know, we all have that, what's that? I don't need to do that, you know?
Always. You're like, now that one is taking it too far for me.
Who cares? I breathe every day. I'm fine. Like,
I'm breathing right now. Yeah.
So in the summer, I am on my favorite, you know, device, which is Instagram, and
Love.
I see that somebody's started following me. And so, you know, you go and check like, oh, is this a bot? Is this really somebody? Like, who's following me? Mm-hmm. Well, this woman is following me, and she has the same exact name as my mom, which is not a common name.
Wow.
So my mom's name was Jana Lynn.
Yes.
A lot of people called her Jan. There's a lot of Janas out there, but you don't hear Jana Lynn a whole lot.
Yes. And
So-
your mom, I hope this is okay for me to share. Your mom passed away when you were 15.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I do think that, I mean, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but that I feel like maybe guided you into a lot of this spiritual journey of being like, I need to heal this childhood wounding from losing my mother at a young age, and frankly, quite suddenly.
Yeah, really suddenly.
And
Totally.
and just a lot. Like, you are somebody who this is going to sound so funny. You have been through so much in your life that you had every right to be so messed up and so like just off your rocker. And you are one of the most well-adjusted, beautiful souls I have the pleasure of knowing. And I'm going to get emotional, but like, you truly just, I just think that you are the perfect example of taking such a hard start early on in life and making that into the most beautiful life and turning those into the most beautiful lessons and learning so much about yourself. So
thank you, sweet
I
girl.
love
I'm going
you.
to try not to get emotional too. I love you girls so much. And I appreciate you saying that, Hannah. And it means a lot. I didn't always deal with stuff in a very healthy manner, you know, and we don't need to get into my 20s. We don't need to get into that decade.
we don't need to get into anybody's 20s. The 20s you are in the trenches in your 20s.
You're just figuring it out. It's just survival.
It's rough.
Just turned 20. We'll see how this goes.
Welcome, girl. Welcome to the decade.
Welcome to the decade, girl. It's such a good one though.
It's
too.
great.
Yeah.
It's hard and it's great.
Yep.
But this woman followed you. She had the same name as your mom.
Same name as
Yeah.
my mama, which is just not a common name. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, lo and behold, she's hosting a breathwork class in Spanish Fork, you know, a day or two later. And so I messaged the momager, Maddie.
What should I do, Chris?
Chris, should we do this? And it's funny because Maddie humors me a lot with a lot of my stuff, and some of it she's like, okay, mom, and some of it she's like, yeah, mom, just I don't know what you're doing today. And so that was one that she was like, yeah, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And so I get there, the teacher didn't have any recollection of following me whatsoever. You know what I mean? She's never liked one of my posts or anything. And so it's one of those random things, but breathwork is so powerful, you guys. And I love, love, love going. It will move stuff out of your body like you can't believe. So
Well, like, breath work, and again, people are gonna be like, what the freak? But like, look it up. Like, truly look up videos. Look up Wim Hof. He's a huge person in like the breathwork space. Wim is what, W-I-M, and then
I think so,
Hof,
yep.
H-O-F. It's essentially deep meditative breathing.
Yep.
And when you breathe, you're taking it in and letting it go. So you think like, yeah, why wouldn't you be like releasing more than just air.
Totally. Yep. Totally. And it's hard. It's not easy. It's a workout. You know what I mean? And she told us, like, at the first class, she's like, you're going to want to give up. You're going to, that ego's going to come in and be like, I'm tired. I can't. My back hurts. This, that, whatever. You push through and then you reach such a beautiful place with it. And so just, synchronistically, like, it was just something else to go and try. And I think Maddie really enjoyed it too. And that's actually Maddie's middle name is my mom's name. And so, I don't know, just synchronistic stuff like that. Yeah. It's just really fun. So yeah.
Well, and I love what you said before this story, just about looking for the synchronicities in your life. And we truly do all have them. It's just, you do have to take a minute and reflect and be like, wait, yeah, there's this connection. There's this connection. And in hindsight, I feel like it's truly 2020. And I say that all the time in my own life. I'm like, it did not make sense until I got to this point, until I got beyond it. And then you look back and you're like, yep, that happened. So this could happen. So this could happen. And I truly am somebody that just believes that everything's connected. And, some things have more weight than others, right?
For sure.
So it's like some things, it's like, yeah, that's kind of connected, but it's not like really, like, you're never going to know the connection there. But other things, the connection is very, very clear and very strong. And the coincidence of things is impactful.
Totally.
So
totally.
So yeah, I think I love what you said about synchronicities, and thank you for sharing yours, because it truly is just like, ooh, I love it. Like, I love hearing the connections in other people's lives and being like, whoa, that's insane. And I mean, I love it. I'm going to take a minute tonight when I journal. Claire and I talked about this in a previous episode, that I journal every Sunday. Just updating my week, because I'm not good at journaling every day. And I don't have an exciting enough life to journal every day. I'm like, I ate some cheese today, ate some cheese and didn't get dressed. So perfect.
That sounds like the perfect day.
Right? But so I update every Sunday. And so I maybe want to do that in my journal tonight. Just recognize the synchronicities and you will find that gratitude where you're like, I am where I need to be.
Yep. I'm right where, and I think it's like, the universe will play with you. And the more you recognize that, I think the more you invite it in. And of course, then there's the times that are just lulls and you're like, come on, give me a sign, give me something. And it's like, nope. But as a general rule, I think if we're willing to look and recognize, so, I am really just grateful you asked me the question, but it's like, yeah, we are in an interactive, loving universe. There's a lot of crap. But there's a lot of good too,
Totally. And I want to refer back to what you said about the lulls. I mean, everybody who has listened and who will listen will know that I'm a Christian, and I very much believe in a God and Heavenly Father. But whenever there's a lull, I read something the other day. It's like the lull, and when it's quiet is when God is working. Like, He's not going to be speaking to you when He's working. So it's like, when there's a lull, I recognize that it's like, for me, it's God. I'm like, God is working in my life. And when He's working, He's quiet because He's focused. Yeah. And, I
love that.
And so and for other people, it might just be like, okay, the universe is working for me, or whatever it is, whatever that means to you. For me, it is God. And I'm like, God is working in my life when I feel like it's quiet, and when there's a lull and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, what should I be doing? And that's when I get antsy. Yeah. And it's like, you just need to slow down and listen to that. And all of these modalities that we talked about today are just ways to connect with yourself further, to connect with your source further. And to really know yourself so that you can make the best possible decisions for you. For sure. And that you can heal the things that you need to heal and live the happiest, healthiest version of your life. So
totally. And you guys do such a good job of that. I love watching you guys.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. Try. I feel like some days are better than others.
Always, right?
Always.
And for everybody, it's true.
Always. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so before we wrap this up and before we end, we've started a new segment on the podcast that's really quick. It's called Live Your Truth, okay?
Okay.
We're So True podcast. We live your truth. Live your truth is anything that is true for you at this moment. It can be something funny. It can be something serious. It can be something emotional. Like one week, it was Claire's Live Your Truth was if her back hurts, she shouldn't be expected to do anything. That was the truth she was living in. So like it can be anything.
Okay.
So I'll start.
Okay.
The truth that I'm living in right now at this moment, and this is kind of a more serious one, is that work friends, like friends at work, are so important and can sometimes become the most like crazy, beautiful friendships you've ever had.
100%.
I started a new job 2 Mondays ago, and I like made a work friend, and he is hilarious, and he has made the experience so fun, and like we've just had a grand old time. Like, and I was like, wow, work friends are so great, and I still hang out with friends from old jobs, and I'm like, wow, work friends are important. So that is the truth I am currently living in. Claire, do you have a truth?
Well, I think maybe kind of like the theme of this episode, you know, like my truth is that many things can be true, that many things can lead you down a great path and other things can derail you. And if you're on a good path, I think what's meant for you will never pass you by. And I think the universe is always rerouting you and redirecting you to what's better, where God is redirecting you. Yeah, I don't know, kind of all over the place, but that maybe is my truth.
Live your truth, girl. All right, Melissa, do you have a truth? So what truth are you living in right now?
So right now, by the way, I love both of your truths.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so right now, my truth, and it goes along with what you said about God, the quiet moments, He is working. So my truth right now is January. I love it. It's rest. I'm wintering, and I'm giving myself full permission to winter. I'm not putting a lot on my plate purposefully. I feel like where we're at in Utah, we do have the gift of winter, and it is easy to be a little more relaxed because there's not a lot to do unless you're a Virgo, Porter, snowboarding and all of that. But so that is my truth right now, is that I am, I'm just allowing for rest, and I hope everybody kind of gives themselves permission for that too.
I love it. I love that so much. So where can people find you on social media if they want to contact you for an astrology natal chart? If they're in Utah and they want to book a foot zone with you, give everybody your info. We'll also post it in the show notes if that's what you would like.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell people where they can find you so that they can get an astrology natal chart. They can come and get a foot zone, because she truly is just such an amazing individual, and you absolutely have to do something with Melissa.
Aww,
so
thanks,
tell everybody where they can find you.
So Instagram is a good one. I think it's Melissa_M33. Well, like you say, we can post it.
We'll post it in the
right?
show notes. Yes.
If anybody is your friend, you're welcome to number. You know, you
Love.
can give them my number. Text is always great. So yeah, Instagram or text is wonderful.
Yes, it's Melis, MELIS_M33 on Instagram if you want to contact her for an astrology natal chart or a foot zone. If you are an actual personal friend of Claire and me, we can talk, and we'll set you up with Auntie Mel. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks,
this was
guys.
so fun. I'm so
super fun.
excited to release this episode. And yeah.
Yeah, I eat this shit up like all the time. Like I freaking love this shit. Like I could literally talk about this stuff for hours and hours, and I'm so glad we finally have an episode with this and with you. So.
I love it. I love it too, Claire. And I love, speaking of work friends too, I love when we work together.
Yes, me and Melissa
we
work
can
together.
Talk. We can do all the things. Yes.
I know. One time we literally like went off about like the 8th house, like at work. We were like, so what do you think this means?
Well, yeah, we had some interesting conversations with the haunting and the
yes
that we will not name in the episode, but
we will not name drop here.
Even
though we want to, we won't.
the weird things in life, right? Remember that day? I think it was October too, so it was kind of spooky season.
Yes, it was.
Possibly it's haunted where they work. We don't know.
Yeah,
we
maybe
think it is, huh, Claire?
Yeah, just a little bit. Maybe not so much anymore. But
Right? I haven't, well, I'm not there as much.
the
but
ghost activity isn't really
it's settled.
activating and really.
Listen, Claire has an EMF reader that she can bring to work anytime.
When are you working on a Tuesday? You have to bring it.
No, wait.
You guys need to go in the back room and do some ghost hunting.
We need to go into
I will
the
absolutely.
office in the back.
Yes.
Tell you guys a story off my.
Okay. Yes. Wait. I didn't even think about this. I will definitely bring my EMF reader to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can catch us every single Tuesday. Make sure to go follow Melissa. Get with her. Get some of your work done. You will feel so good. And yeah, have a great week and live your truth.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, you guys.